Kari Lyman. I'm the education coordinator for Moose Mountains Speedway. I'm very happy you're here today. I want to thank our Conservation Commission members for all the work they do in their towns, their communities. That's, without you folks, we wouldn't have very much to help us. So thank you. So tonight, I'm going to make my part of this really short because there's a lot of information to share. I'd like to thank Jack Savage for making the venue available for us. Thank you very much, Jack. We have Amanda Stone with New Hampshire Cooperative Extension. As Amanda, she works for the whole state, so she'll be giving a presentation a little bit later. Emma Carqueño, did I say it right? She's there, and she's with Rockingham County, UNH Cooperative Extension as well. And Wendy Scribner is Wendy back there. Almost everybody knows Wendy. So she's with Carroll County. Nick Coates, he's going to be stepping into other shoes for the New Hampshire Association for Conservation Commissions. So he'll be available for information as well tonight. Ed Como, he's going to be filming us, and I think it's going to be on the website. So if you forget anything, just check out his website, and your answer will be there. He's with Government Oversight, is that right, Ed?
That's correct.
Okay. Let's see. So I want to remind boards that if you have a quorum here, you may need to take notes, just for full transparency. And no decisions about properties or anything like that can be made. So just want to make that clear to all you folks. Housekeeping, bathroom is under the restroom sign and toward the back. Help yourself, coffee, juice, water, all kinds of different things. The nori rolls are gluten-free, so you can eat those if that's a problem. And on the desk as you came in, if you haven't given your address, email address and phone numbers, or if you could write them down, or if you don't want them shared, please cross them off. Just update and make any corrections to the list I have over there. And I'll be sending it out to the whole group via email if you so choose. Okay?
Do you want me to pass it around?
Sure, that'd be great. Thanks, Cindy. And this is our agenda for the evening. Okay? And on the bottom, if you wouldn't mind just taking a quick little feedback survey at the end and just give us an idea. Did you like it? Did it work for you? Was it helpful? Would you like to see another one? That kind of any information like that, if you have other ideas for next year. Okay? All right, so my role today, this evening, is, all I'm doing is we're going to go around the room, and we're going to hear successes, ideas that you might have, challenges that a board is having, anything like that, and I'm just going to be writing them down. And then we'll have a discussion time. It's just about brainstorming right now. Amanda will do a brief presentation. Nick will speak a little bit. And then boards can talk together and to kind of come up with different ideas. Now, since we have so many people, I'm going to ask that you kind of, that we move along fairly quickly. So, and if you don't mind, I'm like a control freak and want to know where to line. So if we can do that, that would be great. So that said, if you have any questions, anybody have any questions for me before we start? All right, Virginia?
I'm Virginia from the Executive Director of Moose Mountains Regional Greenways. I know many of you, but if I haven't met you before, I'd love to get introduced during the break. MMRG is taking the big step this year of becoming a land trust. And that means that we will now take easements. We will be a holder of easements, which we have not done in the past. In the past, we have facilitated conservation projects. Now we're going to actually hold easements. And we're very excited that we already have one project with a landowner in Farmington, New Durham, who's donating an easement on 200 acres. And we're working with him, and we hope to close on that easement by either the end of the year or early next year. We're also working with the town of Milton and we will be the executory holder, that is the backup holder of the easement for a project in Milton. So you can now, as a conservation commission, if you're working on a conservation project in your town, you can consider working with us as a potential easement holder or a backup holder. We're going to refine our policies on it, and we're going to send out some written information to all the conservation commissions about what that will mean. It does mean something in terms of money, actually, because as an easement holder, it means we have the responsibility in perpetuity to make sure that the easement restrictions are abided by. And we will have to monitor every year, go out on the property, walk it, make sure that there haven't been any violations. So we're going to develop stewardship funds for every property that we held an easement on. And when we do that in collaboration with the town, if we're the easement holder, we would need to get those funds, or if we're an executory holder or backup holder, we would need some funds. So we'll send out some policies on that. We also encourage the conservation commissions, the towns that have easements, to think about designating some specific funds to monitor those easements yourselves. Go ahead and review all the easements you hold. So we're available for discussion about all that anytime you want to think about it with us. One other small point, I started handing out these handouts, one per town. It's a list of maps that MMRG owns. Some of them are a little out of date, but they still might be useful as to put up and let your citizens see. So you can lend, or you can borrow, that's what I mean. Lend your maps for your town, and they've been cataloged by our board member David Levin, and so they're now really well organized, and we can find them for you. And I've got the list for you that you can see what the titles and the map resources we have are. And Amanda's going to be handing out new maps tonight too.
And you do have to sign them out and sign them back in.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Linda. Unboxing,
So, Kate Brizard, Middleton Conservation Commission. As always, we continue, we have two major land projects that we've been working on. One is the town forest, and one is the Tanglewood area. We've been plotting away at acquiring properties in both sites.
So those are two successes.
Two successes that we continue to build on.
And any challenges that you're facing that you feel like the board or our presenters might be able to assist you with?
Oh, identifying, the lands that are noteworthy.
And please forgive my spelling. All right. Anything else?
Okay, Carol Brown on conservation also. We're working very hard on things. What we want to do is we started it maybe 10 years ago or better, where we had land, we acquired more land, we built it up. There is wetland in there. There are some wetlands. We want to make a conservatory out of it. However, I need to find out how I can get funds in order to do something like this.
So you're one of your prime concerns. is
Right.
about-
Yes, right.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Evelyn?
I'm Evelyn Campbell, Middleton Conservation. I was interested in waste management and getting resources as far as doing recycling into our town, but that's kind of fallen by the wayside. I would like to get some new information on how to go ahead and do something with that.
Get recycling?
Yes.
I'm Keith Fletcher. I'm the Director of Land Conservation for Moose Mountains Regional Greenways. I've had the great pleasure of working with many of you on conservation projects, and if I haven't worked with you yet, I hope we do get to work together in the future. I'm the person who works with landowners and is the primary contact usually when there's a landowner interested in conserving their land in Moose Mountains.
I'm Cindy Paul, and I live in Farmington, and I'm on the Moose Mountain Regional Greenways Board, and I'm actually here to listen, so I'm just going to pass the baton.
Skip me as well.
Cynthia Wyatt, Milton Conservation Commission. I've been chair for several years. I
I think our biggest challenge is, the stewardship monitoring responsibility. We have a sort of a legacy of many fee-owned parcels and easements, some of which are a result of cluster zoning, which are just like 2 or 3 acres of wetlands, and but we still assume the responsibility of monitoring these. So we have been really playing catch up with, going through all the steps that it's been kind of a learning process, about baseline documentation, and getting surveys done, and finally getting boundaries marked so that, a monitoring agent can go out and know where the boundaries are. So it's been a very long, expensive process because we do have several conservation processes, but we're getting there. But I think that, I'm sure that's a challenge for a lot of conservation commissions, but I would say that is our biggest challenge.
Okay, so that's stewardship monitoring, catching up with your baseline documentation, surveys, boundary markers. Did I miss
Yeah,
anything else?
catching up with what it takes to properly and responsibly monitor and hold, easements and conservation properties for a town. Which has been very expensive because we've had to pay for surveys, we've had to pay someone to go out and mark boundaries, which we couldn't do because it was in a wetland. And because so much time has passed since these easements were given to the town like 25 years ago, there are encroachments, and we're not sure how to deal with that. So it's, I know that, at the time, it sounded like a good idea, but, there were sort of unintended consequences that we're facing now. But we're slowly but surely getting there.
Okay, so how to take more responsibility in monitoring, holding easements, and the expense.
Yeah, I think that towns have to realize how important it is to have, the standards and practices in place that land trusts do to properly, to take on this responsibility that's forever.
Okay, so educating the town. Okay.
Well,
You said something
educating,
about,
I think, commissions in the town and the selectmen, yeah.
Municipality. Okay, I just had another question. Wetland markings, did you
Well,
mean
the boundary, the
boundaries?
conservation easement boundary is through a wetland.
Through a wetland, okay.
So there was no real way to mark that, for a layman to do.
Okay. Did you feel like I covered everything?
Looks good.
Thank you.
Yeah, Art Slocum, I've got 2 hats tonight. I'm the chairman of Moose Mountain Regional Greenways, and I'm a member of the Wolfboro Conservation Commission. On the Wolfboro Conservation Commission side, we recently, within the last year, completed a project called Front Bay, which is a park that the town can use. And in conjunction with that, we also made an additional trail to that to go out to 109A. All the volunteer help, and we had to do a little bit of fundraising on the Front Bay thing, but it was essentially with help from the Conservation Commission, but primarily private donations. We were able to accomplish this, which is a great facility for the town, picnic tables, and a nice place for people to go. And more recently, we were in the process of joining with boundary line adjustment 2 properties. One that was donated, some timberland, up in North Wolfboro near the Ossipee line. And so we wholly own that, but then there's like 65 acres additional that a property owner wants to put into an easement and reduce the size of their footprint. And that area includes Whiteface Mountain, which is 1,100-foot elevation with phenomenal views, and an area that really can't be developed. It's all rocky ledges and cliffs and such, but We're hoping that over a period of a number of years, we'll be able to join other properties that have left that if they come available. So be it, but to provide trails, hiking trails, and recreation within the community.
Okay, so the Front Bay Town Park and the trail, and you said about fundraising, it was private and business, or mostly?
For Front Bay it was.
Okay.
Yeah, and for the Whiteface project, which is in the works, we were working with Lakes Region Conservation Trust. Wolfboro Tuftonboro Land Bank has initiated the effort, of course, the Town Conservation Commission, and Moose Mountain Regional Greenways has been involved to a certain extent as well. So our primary issue with these is when you talk about long-term, the city touched on it, the responsibility of whether it's something that's owned by the Conservation Commission or owned by, say, Lakes Region Conservation Trust, whoever the owner is, how to come up with the funds to monitor that forever and to make sure that it's properly taken care of and that the butters are not infringing on it, and it remains a good thing for the town and for the public in general.
So funding, it also maintaining trails as well?
Yeah, you can do it with volunteer help, but ultimately, you're gonna probably might get into having to buy stuff for the trail. It might be stone dust, it might be something that you might have to do to make the trail easier, or have a design for the trail, whatever. It can't all necessarily be volunteer.
Do you feel like I covered everything?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
I'm Richard Ballou on the Farmington Conservation Commission, and we've been dealing with a lot of things, but I think Dave's the chair, and I think I'll because, you can probably. You've been on.
Are you giving your time to me?
Yeah, 6 minutes.
Dave Connolly, Chairman of the Farmington Commission, been chairman six years now, I believe. And listening to so far all these folks, we've come across every single one of these issues. And some we're still dealing with, and others hopefully we found a way to work about those issues. But down in Farmington, we have over 500 acres in conservation, with more on the books, ready to hopefully soon coming into conservation. Our biggest tasks right now is on a 65 acre parcel that actually Fish and Game holds the easement on.
Sorry.
We have applied, and fingers are crossed, hopefully getting a grant from the state to establish hiking trails, which includes bog bridges and stream crossings and everything. So it's a pretty big project. We've been working on this for 4 years now. It takes time. It doesn't happen like that, which in the beginning I was hoping it would. The other issues that we find is funding, absolutely, for everything and anything that a Conservation Commission is going to do. Specifically monitoring the 2 acre properties, the 1.2 acre properties, and then what happens when there is encroachments, how do you fall back and follow up and stuff like that. So that is always an issue for us. And then the other big issue we have, which I'm sure every town encounters, is the illegal dumping. But we've been very aggressive, and with full support of our selectmen and law enforcement. Many times you've seen us in the paper. We've been successful, but apparently the word doesn't get out enough. So we'll just keep doing it, and I'm thankful to have just about a full board. They're all volunteers, they're all fantastic. And we also have included our local high school. We actually have high school students sit on the board. So we have that liaison between us and our future conservation members. So that's worked out well. So I can go on and on. Go ahead, Jim.
You have Richard's time.
Dear board of the Conservation Commission, as Dave indicated, there's a lot of work going on. Part of our maintenance includes putting up cameras to catch the culprits. So there's a certain amount of time and energy and expense involved in that. Our town gets our money from the current use fees, and hasn't been a whole lot of contributions lately with the lack of construction going on. So we need to be careful what we spend our money on. But there are several choice pieces of property. Another thing we've been dealing with is trying to get the legal issues squared away. These things that were done many years ago on a handshake, and well, he said, she said, we're getting the property surveyed, everything legally marked and documentation so that there's no battles in the future. And then we've got 2 management plans on Du Bois, which is almost 200 acres. The French property, what's that,
65.
Those 2 management plans have been established, and once we get all the legal issues done with the town forest, which is another 60-something acres, also comprising about 5 pieces of 4 parcels, we'll have a management plan going on that. Some money can be made through forestry, you know, cutting down the trees and doing the trimming. There's a financial obligation that, you know, once you get the management plan into effect, you have to maintain that property, and you have a cycle to go through, the 5-year trimming and for the habitats and different layers. So if you do have a kitty, you want to kind of establish a minimum fund, which is something we're probably going to do here in the next 6 months, where you don't go below a certain threshold for the kitty, so that you've got the money to maintain these management plans and to fulfill your obligations. And we work with, well, you guys, East Mountain Greenways has been helping us out with maps and a variety of other topics, as long as I can remember. And Stratford Rivers Conservancy is also been on some of the properties in Farmington. But there's a lot going on. We're doing everything in our power to make it accessible to people, to improve it, make trails. A little trouble with handicap accessible, but short of that, we're doing pretty good. That's all.
And if I can just come back to Richard's time here real quick. Well, go ahead.
So some of us are learning how to do some studies on the water quality in the Schuylkill River, and also hopefully the Berry River, and feeds into the reservoirs of Rochester. So anyway, we're learning how to do those water quality studies that we can do.
We were working with the Volunteer River Association project.
Volunteer Rivers Association.
That's it. VRAP. VRAP.
I have dyslexia.
Lori Chase.
Lori Chase, who unfortunately is no longer with them. But the other thing is the preambulations. We've been started to address that issue too. It's come to our attention, especially with the towns abutting Farmington. Preambulation hasn't been done in 20 years. It's supposed to be done every 7. So we've been out there with GPSs and one of our local citizens, we've been lucky enough, he's been volunteering his time and services and going out there, and we've been finding all these old markers and everything. So hopefully within the next couple of years we can walk up to the selectmen and say, here's your markings, go do what you got to do to make it official. The other thing I wanted to point out was public outreach and letting the public know who we are, what we do, and why we're doing it. When I started on the commission 7, 8 years ago, I was astounded that nobody even knew Farmington had a conservation commission, let alone that there are properties out there for those folks to use. So a big thing that I try to do is the public awareness. And with the help of Kari, she's been helping us with that for the past couple of years, putting on forums and everything. So we're going to continue to do that.
Good.
Can I just add 2 more things? Just to let you know, folks, we found out, and yesterday mentioned somebody encroaching. There's an area at the Farmington, I think it's Farmington-Durham line, where somebody has cut the trees crossing the line. This was found through Bing aerial photos. So if you need to get a good look at the landscape and see what's happening, I understand you can go back as much as 10 years and track what's happening on a piece of land with a certain amount of accuracy. And on the preambulations, we have been trying to go walk the town lines and find these marks. Just to let you know, we had one that with the description was there's 4 rocks on a big rock and underneath it. 4 little rocks were there. So looked it up.
And so it's a big one.
So, but now there was a change in the laws where they're afraid if you're on their property, you might be surveying for what the assets may be there, and there's a problem there. So
Yeah, I think that was Bill 641 that went through a couple of years ago.
yeah, within the last 12 months.
641?
I believe that was the
HB.
HB 641, I think.
But basically, it kind of limited our ability to go traipsing through the woods without notifying all the abutters. So we were just going out there as a conservation, get together to go out there and find these markings and then hopefully make the perambulation a little bit easier. But that was kind of slowed down. And just to let you know, at corner of Farmington, what is it, Farmington, Stratford,
Barrington.
Durham, Alton,
Alton, the
where
5 corners.
5 points come together at one, it's the only one in Farmington.
5 towns
In
and
New Hampshire,
three counties. We got the 3 counties.
Yep. One big stone in a day. It's where 5 counties.
So that one was farther in the woods.
And that's it.
Okay. Feel like I got them all? All right, so, Jack?
Sure. My name is Jack Savage. I live here in Middleton. I'm a member of the board recently of the Moose Mountains Regional Greenways. And my day job is working for the Society for Protection of Hampshire Flora. And so I get involved in conservation issues around the state. In terms of challenges, I think having been involved in working with the local town of Middleton, it's trying to balance resources for conservation with all the other legitimate needs. That's, we have choices we have to make, and sometimes they're hard choices. It's a challenge.
I thought I turned you off. Sorry, I didn't have my over today. Okay, all right. Did you catch that in? Okay, let's see, Dave.
Dave
David,
Levin,
sorry.
I'm on the Milton Conservation Commission and Moose Mountain Regional Greenways Board. And I'm going to punt back to Cynthia because she was doing such a good job talking about zoning. I'm probably just going to touch on some of the things that Cynthia mentioned. Because Cynthia and myself and one other conservation commissioner who couldn't be here this evening are also on the Moose Mountain Regional Greenways Board as we, as a land trust, begin to look at standards and practices. We're finding it very helpful for how we conduct ourselves. Cynthia emphasized our awareness of our stewardship needs. I actually got involved with the Conservation Commission through some money questions for the commission in the town, and consequently I find myself with the responsibility for keeping the conservation fund, or keeping an eye on the conservation fund for the commission. And one of the things that we did as a result of knowing about the standards and practices that are required of land trusts, we did in fact create within the conservation fund an actual stewardship fund and also a legal defense fund. And I would encourage towns to really think seriously about creating both of those funds as distinct restricted funds in your towns, so that the money is there when you need to do monitoring and heaven forbid you need to hire a lawyer to deal with some issues. I think one of the biggest issues that we have, one of the biggest challenges we have in Milton, as we are collecting baselines now that probably should have been written many years ago when these parcels were put into conservation, is that we are discovering a phenomenal number of encroachments. And in some cases, corners of houses that are sitting on conservation land, so that we're really scratching our heads and would appreciate any experience that anybody has in dealing with those kinds of things. We'd love to hear about it. As definitely a neophyte, I'm a little bit of a jab on the Moose Mountains Board, but not much. The thing that has astounded me is how much time it takes to actually get a conservation easement completed. That's been, I think for most of the people in the Milton Conservation Commission, it's been a real eye-opener, working on one now. The other thing that we're doing, I can't remember whether Cindy mentioned this or not, but we are looking at a parcel of town-owned land to create a town forest on, so would love to hear from people about your experience in creating, managing, monitoring, whatever town forests. And one more thing that Dave mentioned about water quality. Milton, we believe, is updating their master plan, and I know in the previous master plan we had a tremendous input into the water quality section, the NRI for the master plan or for the town. And I think since we're on 3 ponds and with the Salmon Falls River watershed right there, we need to probably be looking at that again, and I'd love to hear from people about your master plans and what you do in terms of what the input of the Conservation Commission is in your town towards your master plans. Thanks.
You said the stewardship fund and a legal?
Legal defense fund.
Defense fund, thank you. Changes in baseline documentation, remember the time it takes to complete it, maintenance, town forest, managing, monitoring, water quality, and master plan. All right.
So I'm Bob Craycraft from the town of Durham. I was hoping some of my Conservation Commission colleagues will be here. But nonetheless, I'm an alternate on the Conservation Commission. But what I can say in kind of a nutshell is on a positive front, we have several conservation projects in process right now, hoping to finish them off in about a year. And so there is, and some of those are connected to existing conservation parcels, so building upon what's already there, which is one of our objectives. But certainly some of the other issues that have been discussed, particularly funding, is a big one, particularly right now with multiple projects in process and others that have potential to move forward. We have a very shoestring budget, more strapped than ever. And certainly there have been other times where they haven't with the projects. So right now, I guess it's a double-edged sword. The good news is we have multiple projects. The bad news is we may not have the resources to move forward with some of the projects in the pipeline, at least the meeting. But anyway.
Hi, my name is Bill Nelson, I'm selectman in Brookfield, and I'm on the Conservation Commission as a assigned spot to be on the committee, and among other state reps. So I have nothing to add at the moment.
Thank you. Yes.
You don't have anything to add? Okay. We haven't got a lot of active projects. I'm Dick Peckham of the Brookfield Conservation Commission, and I'll defer detailed comments to our chairman, Tom Giguere, but I'd like to mention 3 things. Maybe Tom can expand on it. I think our biggest accomplishment was the defeat in last March at the town meeting of a change in zoning warrant article, which would have allowed the development of around 200 acres of land, part of which bordered on Kingswood Lake, and there was a good number of acres of wetland included in this parcel also, which if this zoning change had gone through, we have no idea how many cabins would have been built on this property. The supposed developer never disclosed this to us. So it was defeated mainly because the owner of the property was deficient in notifying or educating the voters as to what his plan for that property was. But it was, it definitely would have affected the water quality of Kingswood Lake, which is one of the headwaters of the Salmon Falls River. And it certainly would have affected the property values of all the seasonal and permanent homes on that lake. Anyway, that was defeated. The second question, which I'm glad Bill is here, and that's perambulation of the town boundaries. We hired a professional surveyor, and as far as I know, he found all the monuments except one. And I don't know if this is something that the Conservation Commission should put their oar in the water for or not. The other, so I'll let you comment at some point if you want to. The other one is a very, this problem hasn't reached the Conservation Commission level yet, but it's at the planning board level, and I think eventually it will become at least partial involvement for the Conservation Commission, and that's a proposal or a request for subdividing our recreational area. That could have a tremendous impact at the present and in the future if we start to allow subdivision, and we don't know what this really means, of a vast 300 or more acre recreation area in our town. So hopefully the Conservation Commission can influence the decision by the planning board as to whether or not to allow subdivision in this area. That's all I got.
So it's that you defeated the change in zoning in the town. Is it pre-ambulation or per-ambulation? Per-ambulation, thank you. And that you hired a professional surveyor. And then the subdivision of the recreational area, is that in your question of that?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a gray area. I don't know if the Conservation Commission will be involved or not, but I hope they will be.
Okay. And you were talking about communication with the planning board?
Well,
The
it's
select
in
board?
the, right now, that subdivision request and
Mhm.
application is, well, it hasn't even reached the application level yet. It's just preliminary discussion, and it's in the hands of the planning board at this point.
So looking at the relationship with the planning board and if the conservation commission, your conservation commissions have a rapport with the planning board? Is that
Oh, we
kind of
do.
what I'm-
I'm on voting.
Okay. Okay. All right, thank you.
I'm George Jaeger. I'm with the Brookfield Conservation Commission. I'm an alternate. It's new, so I'm going to slide it on up the line here.
I'm Jean Jones with Brookfield also, and I'm going to go ahead and let Tom handle this.
I'm John Nelson, I'm on the CC board, and I don't have any other input other than to be a good listener. I'm going to pass this on my other colleague.
I'm Bill, and I'm going to listen to John.
Okay, John. I think, let's see, 5, 10.
I'm Tom Jaguar with the Brookfield Commission also. And as Dick was alluding, probably our biggest challenge is lack of opportunity up to this point. We don't have any town easements. We do try to educate the residents that this opportunity is available to them if they're looking for a way to protect their land, and we're always willing to help. We have started a conservation fund a few years ago, and we're building that and hope to be ready when an opportunity to conserve some land does come along. We feel fortunate that we've got 3 big parcels: the Moose Mountain Reservation, Copple Crown Conservation Area, and the Ellis R. Hatch Wildlife Area. these portions of that inner town. And if I did the math right, I think those 3 parcels add up to over 7 square miles, which is a terrific asset in our area. We share that with many of you, many of the towns here. We do lead hikes up into those areas. We make trail guides available. We're always looking for ways to get the word out to our townsfolk, and I think a lot of people in this area move to towns like Brookfield because of the beautiful land we have available in our area. We try to make that clear that we don't want to mess that up. So, as Dick said, with the campground proposal on Kingswood Lake, it's sort of a funnel development. It was 200 acres, which was all going to funnel down into a small beach area on the lake, and would have been, in our minds, kind of a disaster for that area. So we kind of rallied the troops, and we're glad to see that got defeated. I guess that's about it.
Okay. Does anyone else have anything to add? All right, so,
Allow for
little question. Yeah, just see what we have, now that I can finally turn my phone off. Apologize for that. It's a new phone and I'm not sure how to use it yet.
I have a question. Dick, is it?
Yeah.
That recreation area, is that town-owned property?
No, right, no.
All property owned?
Privately.
One parcel.
One,
It's all town-owned?
No, one big parcel.
Oh, it
it's
is?
zoned Rec 1.
Yeah, I was just saying, so if it was town-owned property, they could put a conservation,
Right.
you know, we turn it over to you.
Yeah.
Oh, so, private lands,
It's open to the public though?
Informally.
Yeah,
It's not
by
posted?
invitation, by operation of the recreation that's carried on there, it's open. It's a fee area for some recreation. It's a free area open to the public for other recreation, such as hiking, birding, snowshoeing, cross-country skiing.
As it now stands, the facility there can have one caretaker building that will stay there. The question becomes if they subdivide it, since it's recreational, could that, say, 5-acre lot have their own keeper, have their own, house person there and say that's the house they live on because they own 5 acres in the recreational center. And you could keep dividing it and dividing it if that were ever to happen.
Of course, we could set a standard by another warrant article for that particular area and say that subdivision will be limited to 150-acre parcels. You like that? Watch it. Watch it develop. No, it's a problem. We'll solve it.
I hear a lot of things about funding. I'm just curious, in the different towns, how are you guys currently funded? Just curious.
The land use change tax.
100% or a
50.
percentage?
We get 50%.
You get 50?
Yeah.
50.
Right.
We're, I'm sorry.
I guess, how about Farmington?
We're fortunate, we're 100%.
Yeah.
We, in my tenure, only once has a warrant article come up to cut that, and we were successful in defeating that, so.
So no cap either?
No.
Oh, wow.
100%
Good for you.
no cap.
100% no cap.
Excellent.
So we're.
What are other towns?
New Durham's 100% land use change tax.
Is there a cap?
No cap.
No cap. Uh-huh.
How about Middleton?
100% and no cap.
This is,
So you all regulate, we're all regulated.
How do you guys know when it's gone out of current use?
how do we know?
Yeah.
Our financial director provides me with a
The
monthly
town-
report.
Our town administrator
Town administrator.
lets us know
Yeah,
what
so
happens
you
each
have
month.
town
I get a
administrator.
report from her.
That's new though.
Yes, it is.
We,
We had to
That's
fight,
some problems.
we had to fight for land use change tax that by warrant article was to come to us that didn't for a number of years, but the town is making good at this time.
sometimes we don't get it.
That's the problem.
You need
To go to your assessor or tax or clerk.
Brookfield tried to get the land use change tax a few years ago, but it was soundly defeated. So we get a small contribution from the town every year.
Is that by warrant article or the contribution?
It's a budget line item.
Oh, it's a budget line item?
Yeah.
And it's small.
Yeah, we're rolling it over though every year, and hoping to be ready when something comes along.
Has it been defeated by a town vote?
The land use change tax did, yes.
I heard Middleton say that they're supposed to get 100%, but it doesn't come in, and since you had the same problem, David, I mean, how did you change that when it was going where it wasn't supposed to?
Well, historically what happened, as I understand it, when I came in, Cynthia had actually made attempts over the years to get the town administrator, and we had rolling town administrators, to sit down and figure out exactly how much land use change tax had in fact been collected and not put into the fund. Finally, we had a town administrator, and the assessors themselves came and looked at it and determined how much they felt was owed by the general fund to the conservation fund, and we went before the select board, and the select board agreed, having gotten, I dare say, a fair amount of pressure from the assessors to say, you know, you need to pay this because by law you owe it to this conservation fund. Consequences were, we have a very good and supportive board at the present time, select board, and they made a commitment to make good, and they have one payment to go. And as I mentioned before, we do get, we have a wonderful town administrator now, and she's very good. Every month she sends me a report right at the end of the month and says, yes, there is some collected, this is how much it is, this is what your portion will be, and then working with the treasurer of the town, I get a report from her every month so that I have a report to make to the Conservation Commission from my shadow system, which basically tracks what is in our conservation fund. So the town treasurer makes sure if the administrator tells me money has come in, when I get a report from her, I can see that money coming into our account.
What about Wolfboro?
For 100%, I meant to mention, and I think to what David's saying, and in general, I think it's a town culture thing. I mean, 50% of the residential properties in Wolfboro are waterfront properties. And as you all know, we bill ourselves as the oldest summer resort in America. So recreation and summer recreation and water sports and outdoor sports and cross-country skiing, etc. The town really has bought into that, not only with the planning, with everything. I mean, we're building trails, we're doing all kinds of things because it all adds to property value, it all adds to a better community. And I mean, quite frankly, the water quality, with all the lakes that we have and water that we have, and waterfront property, when the water quality goes down, we pay a real price long term. So, you know, anything that we can do now to conserve that and to keep that from going the wrong way is a good thing. And to the point that two of the members of the Conservation Commission sit on the local ordinance that we're trying to craft to our own benefit on the Shoreline Protection Act, to have our own twist on it, our own regulations that are really more friendly than the state, but also are going to maintain water quality. So these are just, what I guess I'm seeing in general, this is just a total culture. I mean, the selectmen got to buy in, the planning board's got to buy in, everybody's got to be kind of connected to the project and communicating what your long-term best interests are, or it doesn't work.
So
It can't be isolated commissions fighting each other, or it doesn't work.
I'd like to ditto that, Art. I found open communications with all your departments it has nothing but benefited us and the townsfolk in the long run. selectmen, planning board,
Public Works.
Public Works Department, law enforcement, all of them. And the biggest thing was open communication with them. And once you start open communication with them, that they talk and they listen, they suggest, and it's all been a plus for everybody all around.
Including the state people.
And including state, we've gone that far too. Yeah.
Do you have any suggestions of how to build that community?
Go to their meetings, introduce yourself, and say, hey, this is who I am, this is what I'm doing.
Invite them to yours.
Yep, absolutely.
Can I add something to that too? I think, well, I know Milton's master plan is out of date. And there has been some rumblings, I think, the Conservation Commission has encouraged an updating of the master plan because there's been an economic development committee that's formed, but, you know, I think master plans are a great way for towns to get together and hold community forums, you know, because it really should be a democratic process and gauging how your community feels about how you want to see the town develop. So, you know, if you want to have a balance with conservation, you know, and development, or if you just want to see, you know, development come and without any conservation planning, but I think you'll find that the community really likes conservation commissions and appreciates the work. So, you know, part of this is doing an NRI, which is a whole other big, huge, and can be expensive process, but again, it's a process and it's a responsible process. And community members, you know, buy into it. You can, these community forums, usually we have great turnout for them. We have 2 communities, Milton Mills and Milton, we usually hold 2 in each town. And then we do a survey, but that's so important to, you know, bring the whole community in and see how they want to see the town grow in the future. So, that's a good starting place, I think.
Anyone else?
I'd like to ask Farmington about their recycling program. Do you have a recycling program?
It's called a single stream.
Right, right. And how does that work?
Selectmen can answer that better.
We've gone through several changes there. Right now, when you go to our landfill, there's one bin there where you throw all your recyclables in. It's not segregated anymore. And then trash goes into another bin. It's a roll-off situation where somebody comes in, carries that load out, and drops it in empty.
Okay.
The schools have their own recycling program. They have bins where they collect the plastics and things like that. And they have their own little programs. But in terms of cost, you know, I guess it's the best we've managed to come up with so far. The thing that bothers me about it is we have these 40-foot or whatever they are roll-offs. You're throwing your stuff into a bin, and then there's a compressor that pushes it into the bin. When they separate that roll-off from the compressor, you got 90 pounds of crap that falls on the ground there. Some guy has to spend 20 minutes shoveling and trying to stick in the back and then throw on the top of it. You would think we'd have better technology, but every time I've asked, it's kind of the best we can do at the moment. But that seemed to work out. We ran into problems with if you segregate the stuff, you've got your plastics, your metals, and cardboards, then you have to store it, you have to bale it. So there's an expense there. It just seemed to be easier and smoother and cleaner. You just have folks roll in, throw their recyclables there, their trash over there, and they get paid.
And what about the cost? Do you find it?
I couldn't talk about dollars and cents. I know I've talked to the Public Works guys about which is the best way to go. This is where we've ended up after a whole series of different programs. All prior to this, it was we were stacking and baling and storing all this stuff until the money was right. You know, and then you got manpower, equipment, and space that you're spending, waiting for the price to go up or get the right thing, or you get so much. And then one of the problems with the single stream stuff is if your load is too light, you still have to pay the hauling fees. So now you got a weight issue. You got to make sure you get enough into the bin and enough weight on the recyclable stuff to make it worth hauling out. So no matter which way you go, it's going to cost you
I understand there's grants available for that kind of a program?
There's what?
Grants?
That, I know they have a variety of grants specifically for recycling. I don't know. I know we've had help with certain development within the landfill, the transfer station.
I know New Durham has a pretty good program over there.
So, I'm not as well versed as I probably should be, but I tell you, there's got to be a better way. I just haven't found it yet.
Okay, thank you.
Something a little short of that, I don't know if you've ever thought about the composting bins that you can buy, those little black bins you can buy pretty cheap. But, I mean, here's my main, I admit I'm from Maine, I'm on my conservation commission in Maine, in Wells. And we've had great success, and it's reduced the stream to the dump. Selling these for $40, they're really nice little composting bins. And boy, we just had a tremendous response, because well, they're only $40 or $45, and I'll tell you, it has really helped. There's been hundreds sold, and it's really cut down. It's has to cut down.
That's for your solid waste.
This is for, yeah, this is more for, you know, compostables, stuff
Okay,
you can
right,
compost.
right.
But just, you know, having a 45, most composters, you know, you can pay $1,000 for a compost, you know.
Yeah.
But to have something that's cheap and works, I have.
But do you have a recycling program also?
It does, yeah, it does.
Are these bins on the ground?
Yeah, you screw them into the plastic, you screw them into the ground with a plastic screw.
Because if they're on the ground, you get the earthworms. If you add them initially, you get the earthworms. Because I've seen some of the ones, the rotating ones, it doesn't make sense,
Right, they're
that
way
makes
up
sense
high.
to me.
Yeah.
Because you don't get the earthworms in it. And I just want to add to what you're saying. You can take away a lot, like kitchen vegetables, like when you cut an apple, let's say, and you throw this in a bin, among other things, vegetable, you cut a lot on what goes into that transfer station. And people should be doing that more than they.
That's true.
There's actually, maybe a few of you know about the company, the organization GALA, G-A-L-A, GALA, and they sell composting bins. And just go on their website, G-A-L-A, and they sell composting bins as well. And they'll come out and they'll do them at your house for you. A lot of fundraising there, a lot of sustainability practices there. So.
I know I got some at Costco, and they were very reasonable. In fact, some of them, there was a hinge on that wasn't functional, and I got them even cheaper than that. And that's the best thing. I mean, you throw this compost in, like I'll throw it in all of it, and it takes a considerable amount, and it makes great soil for your garden.
How do you get a program like that started?
It might be this GALA group, but there are people, there's a program that just deals with this one composter and its accessories, and it might be that we used.
They can point you in directions to.
Our family cut our waste stream from 2 cans to 1 just by doing that.
So you're making black gold for your garden.
Yeah,
That's right,
it works,
exactly.
it makes good stuff too.
Yeah.
Well, in Wolfboro, they contracted out, even though the property itself is owned by the town, and it's a profit center for the town, absolutely.
That's what I'm hoping.
And, you know, you pay a fee to take your stuff there, so it's voluntary in that sense. I mean, there's a local trash service, Casella, that comes around and collects, but you pay for a permit as a responsible citizen, and you go out there and they make money, absolutely make money.
But either way, you're paying for it through your taxes.
Yeah, either way. But it's almost a social place for the town. Saturday morning, everybody sees everybody.
Especially in the spring when everything garden's going. So this last few minutes, I'd like to introduce Nick Coates, and he has a few things to say, and then we'll have a break, I believe, right? And then Amanda will be stepping into the limelight and taking over for the next amount of time, so, Nick.
Does it matter?
Doesn't matter, you can stay there.
I gotta move, keep my back. All right, so my name is Nick Coates, and I apologize if you've heard this corny joke before. I told it at the annual meeting for the New Hampshire Association of Conservation. Our organization was run by Marge Swope for many years. For those of you who may not know Marge, she's a pretty significant conservationist in the state. And you know, a lot of people, as I was telling people about taking this job, he said, you have some really big shoes to fill. I said, well, I wear size 13, so I've got pretty big shoes myself. So that's my corny joke. So just a little bit about me, just to let you know. So I'm actually not the executive director of the Association of Conservation Commissions yet. I'm coming into that. I'm learning as I go. I'm a rolling start. Our current executive director is Carol Andrews, who's been there for about 8 years after March. And my background actually is as a planner. So listening to everyone talk about planning, I'm really excited to hear that. I can't emphasize enough the importance of master planning and the work in preparation and bringing people together. So it's something that I will bring, I think a skill set that I'll bring to the table at the Association of Conservation Commissions in helping towns do that work. So I apologize if I stare at my notes a little bit. I'm not on the job yet, but I'm learning. So again, Association of Conservation Commissions, we represent the conservation commissions in the state. There's 215 of them. Really, we try to provide education and assistance, so technical assistance to the work that you do. By doing that, we think that we can help you be more effective in the work that you do. We want to support you. We want to help you succeed, and when you're effective, your taxpayers benefit. And that's the bottom line, literally and figuratively. A couple things, just to kind of let you know what we do as an organization. I'll hit just some really quick high points. We have an office in Concord, and I'll leave you my phone number and an email reference. So we're available for guidance. You pick up the phone, give us a call. You're working through an issue. We can help, and if we can't help, we'll find someone who can. So you can send an email, you can give us a call. It's a membership-driven organization. There's dues that the towns pay. Most towns have been paying. If you're unsure about whether your town is a member, I have our list, and I can certainly talk to you about that a little bit more. So that's one of the main things we do. We have a website and a resource library and electronic newsletter. So again, we're highlighting the good work that you guys are doing. We really want to tell the story. Actually, prior to being a planner, I was actually a newspaper reporter, so I bring that skill set, and so we really want to tell the story of the good work that you guys are doing. I think it's so important, we don't do it enough. Again, a website to really provide information on some of the things that you guys can learn from each other. And just like you're here learning from each other, we're hoping to do that on a larger scale. So we have that resource library as well to learn best practices. We're in the process of, we've just distributed a survey, and I brought a couple paper copies. So if you're a Conservation Commission member and you didn't fill one out during the annual meeting, I would really, really appreciate it if you could take 5 minutes or less. And they're right behind those, right next to those blue books over there. And it's only one side, the other side's for something for the annual meeting, but you can. And it's really going to help me do a better job for you. That's the point of collecting the information, to help do a better job for you. We have the blue handbooks, which are what I've been told are the Bible of conservation work in the state of New Hampshire in terms of conservation commissions. And then there's another resource book right next to it. It's the New Hampshire Municipal Conservation Fund Guidebook, and the Forest Society was really the lead on that, but we participated in that process. And those are both very good books. I see a lot of people carrying them around with tabs folded everywhere. So if you're interested in that book and you don't have it, I have a couple here for sale. So one of the other things that we do is legislative representation. So we are your voice in the State House. And more importantly, not just being your voice, but connecting you to legislators when there are issues that are important to conservation commissions. So rather than me sitting at the State House and telling a legislator about what's going on, what we feel, one of my goals is going to be to actually find folks like yourselves and selectmen who can tell that story when it comes to legislation. And I just want to mention a couple things that are of importance. So legislative Representation is one of the most important things. There are 2 LSRs right now that have been introduced, so legislative service requests, that's like the pre-bill, that are going to potentially impact Conservation Commission. So what I'd like to do is just read you the language of the LSRs, and I'll give you the numbers. One is number 2006, and the other is 2338. And you can just go to the New Hampshire General Court website, New Hampshire Legislature, and you can search the LSRs, and then when they actually become bills in December, you can get the language. But this is what the LSR says. So one of the proposals, I apologize, I'm going to just read from it. A committee to study the ownership by public entities of land for conservation purposes. So study committee. And then the other one is also study committee. Establish a committee to study the powers and duties of conservation commissions. We're tracking those. We're trying to figure out what's going on. We have a pretty good sense of what's going on. There were a couple bills last year that look to potentially eliminate, or a couple of years ago, eliminate conservation commissions. There was one last year that wanted to turn conservation commission members into elected officials instead of being appointed by your selectmen. We oppose that. And so we're kind of curious to see what's going on with these and whether that's sort of a knockoff of what happened last year. So again, if that's something that's of interest, I would continue to check our website, continue to check our e-news. If you're interested in testifying when it comes to that point, we would certainly welcome your, because it's not about me and it's not about the organization, it's about you and connecting you guys to that process. And then really the last thing I'll say is that, again, as I had mentioned, we sort of answer questions. We take a lot of questions. One of my other goals is we have executive director's reports that come out from all the questions that you guys send us and call us about. And right now they're all in sort of a Word document, and they've been sitting there for about 10 years. One of my goals is actually to turn that into almost like a Google searchable thing on our website, so you can plug in a keyword and you can immediately find out what other towns and what other organizations we're working on in that, so to provide that as a service. Like you, we need to find funding for it, but I think we can probably write some grants. So there's some common questions that we get, and it can be ranging from trail building to how to take meeting minutes that we've heard a lot of, best management practices, providing examples of language for conservation easements. So we field a wide range of questions, and we're there to help. My contact information is on the sheet. So if you have a specific question now, rather than giving you an answer, because I don't want to give you the wrong answer, I'll be glad to take it, write it down, and then Carol and I will work on it to get back to you guys immediately. So, yes.
What were those 2 numbers you mentioned?
Yes, so the LSRs are 2006 and 2338. And I have the language here, and if you're interested, I can pass that along. But yeah, it'll be interesting. Study committee is going to be a very interesting process. So, yes.
Do you think the long-range goal of these bills to ultimately get land out of conservation has been relevant?
No comment.
Okay, fine.
Okay, so we'll take a short 10-minute break, and then please have some food, and we'll get back to there. How are you doing?
It's okay. No, he's working on it.
They do.
Right over there. They're actually there.
No, I'm
Go and walk around.
All right, so hope everyone had a little something to eat, bathroom break, a little something to drink. So we're going to take 5 or 10 minutes, and Amanda Stone, UNH Department of Extension, she will be doing a brief presentation, and then what we're going to do is we're going to break off into 3 different groups. And she's got all kinds of wonderful maps we can look at. I love this. And what I'm going to ask everyone to do is these 2 tables will come together because they have to make them. We have to make them wide enough so the maps will fit on them.
The maps
So,
are big.
Yeah, they're the big
ones.
Yeah. So
I'm sorry, I just want to take a moment and make sure John Mullen gets a chance to introduce himself.
Oh, yes, please.
He's another of our local state reps.
Thank you very much. Sorry I'm late, a little busy up there in Concord today, but I appreciate all this gathering here. It's very important for the community, the wildlife, the environment. So I'm just here serving. So continue on with your work.
And you represent Middleton and
Middleton and Milton both, and I am on the R&D committee, which involves DES. So that's part of this scenario here. So continue your good work. Thank you.
Thanks for your support.
Thank you.
Brookfield, Wakefield, Ossipee, and Effingham. A little bigger.
That's okay.
Okay, so again, these two tables are going to come together, those two tables and those two. Okay, so thank you very much. Well, it's great to be here. This is a really great turnout. It's good to see so many towns all at once. How many people have heard about the Communities Taking Action for Wildlife program? Okay, that's why I'm here tonight. Sorry about that. And how many people have heard about the Wildlife Action Plan? Great, a few of you have. I'm going to give you a little bit of background, just for those of you who aren't familiar. And this is really setting the context for looking at the maps that I brought. This is map night, adding to the wonderful stash of maps you had there. So we have some maps that we're looking at, and this will be a little bit of background to what we're looking at on the maps. So the State Wildlife Action Plan has been around since 2005. And the primary goals are to keep common wildlife common and keep species off the rarefied endangered list. It's very expensive to have species on this list. It costs taxpayers money to do that. And so if we can keep them off the list, we're saving money as well as preserving those species. So the Wildlife Action Plan, back when it was 2005, was a collaborative effort by a number of different organizations. Biologists and researchers across the state contributed a lot of information to putting it together. So it was a truly collaborative effort that really resonated across the state. And it was the first time we had this compilation of information about wildlife species and wildlife habitats. And as a result, we have a wealth of information that communities are starting to use. So some of the primary things that they did in the Wildlife Action Plan was that they identified 123 species that were in the greatest need of conservation. There's obviously many more species than that, but these were the ones that were identified in greatest need of conservation, including threatened endangered species such as the England cottontail, which is a state endangered species, the wood turtle, which is a species of common concern. That means, special concern, that means that it's not a listed species, but we need to watch it. Its populations are declining. And then we have species like the silverhead bat that we really don't have a lot of information on and need more research on. So learning a lot about what we have out there and what is important. And then there's a lot of information that is out there, and I'll tell you where that is in a moment, giving you more background on each one of those species. Then at the same time, there were 27 critical habitats identified. These were the habitats in greatest need of conservation to conserve those species of conservation concern. And these are some examples, some of the habitats, some of the more common habitats, such as hemlock hardwood conifer forest, some of the more unusual habitats, coastal sand dunes. We don't have a lot of those on our small section of coastline. Grasslands are diminishing habitats, and then we have lowland spruce fir forests, another more common habitat. So a lot of variation habitats. We're going to take a look at the habitats on the maps that we look at very shortly. And as with the species, a lot of background information. We have a set of 12 brochures. I have a set for each community here. Some of you may have seen these. These are great brochures for public outreach and awareness, and provide very nice summaries of the habitats and the species that are likely to be found in those habitats. So you can take a look at those, the set that we give you there. So getting on to the maps, and this is giving you a little background to the maps that we're going to look at. This was a really valuable part of the Wildlife Action Plan, and putting a lot of the information that is there in text version of the data, we're putting that into a map version so you've got a visual view of what you're looking at. Now, the maps are produced at a statewide level. That's why I'm showing you the state. We're going to
focus in down to the Moose Mountains and town-based level. But essentially, these habitats were based on predictive models, knowing where certain soils, elevation, climate, landforms, and vegetative classes are likely to occur. You can predict where those habitats will be likely to occur on a statewide basis. And then including wetland data from the National Wetlands Inventory and natural communities data from the Natural Heritage Bureau. So that data was all kind of put into generating this map, which gives you an idea of where most of those habitats are. As with maps, nothing's 100% accurate, but it's a pretty good approximation of what we're looking at. So we're going to be taking a look at that map. And then there's a second map that was developed that was saying, well, where are those areas that really are the highest ecological significance, really very sort of undeveloped, looking at biological factors, landscape factors, and human impacts. And those are just a few of the criteria. There's actually a huge long list of criteria that went into producing this. But looking on a statewide level, where are the habitats that are in the highest ecological condition? And are intact, large habitats, unfragmented, don't have a lot of human impact, and are still providing really excellent habitat for wildlife species. So we actually have the pink are the highest ranked habitats in the state, and in the green are highest ranked biological region. You see that they're those black lines. Those are ecological regions developed by the Nature Conservancy that we used in this mapping procedure as well. So what's important at a statewide level, what's important regionally, and in supporting landscapes are intact forest blocks that go along to support those highest ranked habitats. So we're going to look at those maps. I have brought 3 sets for the 3 groups we're going to break out into, showing the towns in the Moose Mountain Regional Greenway region. I came with gifts. We have poster-size sets of maps for each of the towns here tonight. So before you leave, you will get a CD for each town that has the poster-sized versions, and it actually has all the maps for all the towns. It also has the Moose Mountain maps and the town maps. It was easier just to make the CDs all the same. So you get a CD with the maps, so you can actually print additional copies if you'd like to. And you will leave with a set of maps which you can take for your use. And as somebody mentioned earlier, using the public outreach was becoming so important. These maps are great if they're laminated and then can actually be used for a number of public outreach purposes. It's great to get other people involved looking at the maps, identifying where they see wildlife species. So it's a great outreach tool. So the Communities Taking Action for Wildlife program, I will pass out some information about that. This is where we assist New Hampshire communities who are wanting to incorporate wildlife into their town documents, into public outreach, maybe modifying local regulations to have be more wildlife friendly, conserving lands. So there's a lot of different ways this can be used. And so if you're interested, all the information you need is on this form. There's no charge for the assistance, and that's given by the Taking Action for Wildlife team. And we have 3 members tonight, Emma and Wendy and myself. And this is a collaboration with Fish and Game. We have Fish and Game staff involved as well. And then all the information about the Wildlife Action Plan and what I've been talking about tonight, and basically this is your one-stop resource for information about wildlife, is this website called Taking Action for Wildlife. And we've actually, this has just been updated. You'll see the second item there is Ecosystems and Wildlife Climate Adaptation Plan. This has just been added to the Wildlife Action Plan. It went up on the web last week, and that was basically when it was launched. Or actually this week, I should say. So communities, conservation groups, landowners, there's a lot of different ways that you can get out information. So when we break out your groups, you'll be getting a card for Taking Action for Wildlife. It's got the website on it, so you don't need to write it down. And you can take a look at that, and a lot of information there. We also have a lot of community stories, what other communities have done to incorporate wildlife into their town documents and in conservation planning. So you can have a look and see what others have done and get inspiration for some of your own stories. So that's a very quick overview of Wildlife Action Plan and Communities Taking Action for Wildlife. I think with any questions you have, we can address those as we have the discussion around the tables, looking at the maps for Moose Mountain Regional Greenways and where you are on the map. And this is a great way to look at it because those political boundaries, wildlife habitats don't follow political boundaries, so you can actually see where there's those opportunities for cross-collaboration between communities and how this can be helpful to you in some of the work that you're doing. So it's yet another resource to add to your arsenal and yet another set of maps and other information. So I think if we can split out into tables, and we are going to be, let me just go back into the map. Okay, so Wolfboro and Brookfield will go together in one group with Wendy, and New Durham and Middleton will go with myself, and Farmington and Milton will go with Emma. So we're going to have 2 towns in each group, and then we can take a look at the maps and it'll be easier breaking out into those smaller groups. So we can move the tables and put these 2 together and these 2 together, and I'll move this. Should we go?
That people don't make that connection. In other towns, people, water is what resonates for them. So it's interesting. You have to sort of find what, you know. And the nice thing is that a lot of these things benefit each other. So
Well, there is. And I think everybody around the table knows it. This town and this town are once one town.
I mean, there's some old cellar dwelling there, but you can't do
are you seeing things that you know are there or not there? Really valuable habitat when you think that 150 years ago we had a lot more farmland than we do. This is clear cut here? Yeah, okay.
This area right abutting Wentworth, that in there.
And, you know, farms open habitats were there. Farmers weren't thinking about that. So they are late. Okay.
Yeah, Larry, Bob Leary. Through, yes.
So water bodies come out because they're obviously very important for a number of aquatic species. And so as you look at this, it helps you start seeing, in addition to what you may have seen or hear, some of the areas that might come out as being significant habitats.
And thank you, Wendy and Amanda, Nick, Emma. Thank you all for joining us and being part of this wonderful work that we're all doing. So, and please leave your name tags at the door. And Virginia wants to say something.
Fill out the
Yeah, and our little feedback.
happen next year or what you'd like.
Yeah, if you'd like to see this, us do this again next year. So, thank you so much, and a round of applause for everybody.